Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back for another episode of the Kerbal Space Program. 2 episodes in one day? Yes, actually. I made another episode today, and I'm going to put it up today because of a comment that was made on episode 3. Someone whom I liked and respected at the time made a hurtful and stupid comment that basically said, "Fly better." Really? Fly better? He also stated that you can't, or you shouldn't, run Rockomax mainsail engines at maximum throttle. Or even close to it. Well, I went and I tested it. I'm not going to bother showing you guys. If you really want to, just make a craft with the Rockomax mainsails and test it yourself. But using them at maximum throttle is more fuel efficient than using them at a lower throttle because of fuel weight. What happens is, as you are ascending, you have to remember that you have to fight the weight of the fuel. So at certain points, depending on the thickness of the atmosphere, running at a higher throttle is actually desirable and will get you up there faster, simply because you don't have to carry the weight of the fuel up at higher altitudes, and then therefore have to fight that fuel to actually ascend. I tested it with this exact craft and this exact setup, so I know perfectly well that running at maximum throttle is actually more efficient. It's at a point in its weight ratio where the air resistance is not significant enough to prevent me from doing that. Anyway, so what we've got is the rover that I crafted. He's upside down though, so that kind of makes it a little bit fun to fly. But he works pretty good actually, and I do have a Clampotron docking port here that I can use to control from here to get the gimbal to face the appropriate direction, which is going to come in handy. Now, for those of you who are struggling with larger craft, especially if you're using the Rockomax at higher power, I wish to thank Dragon King 322 for making a comment on one of the videos. He said that if you put the gray metal tanks below the orange ones, it'll stop them from overheating as fast. Well, in reality, they stop it from overheating, period, even at maximum throttle. I asked him what this was, and apparently the orange tanks are actually insulated, so they cause the Rockomaxes to overheat? This is kind of an interesting fact. I'm not sure why they would A, insulate the tanks and then not insulate all of the tanks, and B, why the insulation of the tank affects the... What just happened? Did I push the wrong button? I think I... Oh, I left the... Oh, right. I left the thing on. Right. Sorry about that, guys. That was me being stupid. I forgot to disengage the the gimbaling. Anyway, also there was another retarded comment that, don't bother looking for it. I deleted it. But the guy basically said, no, time runs backwards. Because he said that looking at the very first failure is wrong, that you need to look at the one at the bottom because that's the problem. The Rockomax mainsail liquid engine exploded due to overheating. No it didn't. The first thing that happened was there was a structural failure on the linkage between the Rockomax X232 fuel tank and the Rockomax Jumbo 64 fuel tank. That's what happened. You guys saw that. The 32 fuel tank separated and flew off ahead of the rest of the craft. Not exploded. That was the last thing that happened. That didn't happen until quite a few seconds later. So there were a lot of really retarded comments on that video. That's why there's another Kerbal Space Program video today. Anyway, let's go ahead and restart this flight here. That was my bad. I know better than to do that. The reason you need to disable the gimbal on those engines is, well, basically that. If you don't disable the gimbal, those outside engines will shake the whole craft apart. especially on these Rockomaxes, because they have so much throttle behind them that when they start trying to fight with each other, you get vibrations that just impact each other and build up and build up and build up, and you can see it just right here, right now. Now, it's pretty stable right now because there's lots of struts holding everything together, and mind you, I'm actually going to end this fight here in a second. I just wanted to show you what's going on here. But as soon as I dump off these first set of fuel tanks, which will be this one over here, as soon as this goes away, the whole craft stability is going to go to shit. Alright, now you can see that not only is it wobbling around back and forth, but the top of the craft is now just oscillating rather badly here. And this is just simply going to amplify the faster and the higher we go until eventually it fails. Especially once these fuel tanks get dumped off somewhere around 12,000 kilometers. Sorry, 12 kilometers. So, yeah. Anyway, just simply disabling the outside gimbal on the outside engines, which I will do now through the hotkey I set up, you will notice that all of a sudden it's flying straight, smooth, it's not wobbling. It is spinning around a little bit. That is a situation, or that is a problem due to the struts not being perfectly even. So when it applies force to the craft, the engines do actually tip a little bit in one direction. And as you can see, they are starting to wobble here on the bottom. That happens because as these fuel tanks get empty, the amount of force that the engine is supplying obviously doesn't reduce. So when it pushes up against these smaller fuel tanks, the more empty they get, the more pressure that they are, or the more stress that they are under. And the same thing goes for these struts up here. They are actually transferring more and more and more of the thrust from the engine directly into the body of the craft, which is one of the reasons that you can have things collapsing if you have Rockomax mainsail engines running at full throttle. The whole craft will collapse in on itself. If it weren't for these struts I have here, and these blue things are struts, by the way, they're quantum struts. They just they don't leave behind ugly things. And yeah, see, they didn't explode this time. They don't leave behind ugly junk, and they don't, and they will attempt to reattach every time that you do a docking maneuver. When you dock, if they're pointing at a valid part on the docked piece, they will attempt to attach to it and basically create a strut connection. That's all they are. They're just struts. So I've actually got struts here up to here, which is covering this linkage, because that's where the primary weakness is any linkages, any couple nodes. We've got another coupler node here in order to be able to dump this fuel tank, so we got more of them. And then we have a slightly unique coupling here where I've got a coupler right there. That one's a little bit more difficult to do, so as you can see, I just put some of the small struts and then used I put some small structures and then used some struts in order to support it. And yes, I have actually tested this. This will collapse without these struts, and it kind of looks neat too. Anyway, let's go ahead and actually relaunch this and put it on appropriate orbits here. I still think it's funny that one guy seems to think time runs backwards. Anyway, alright, come on. Get it to load in here, lock in the SAS, maximum throttle, make sure to disable the gimbal. It really is inconsequential in the long run, but you do actually get slightly more efficiency not gimbling the engines because they're all facing straight down at all times instead of, you know, slightly off to the side. But yes, so we leave the center one still capable of gimbal so that it can help to keep us going straight up. That's not entirely necessary if you get your craft really well balanced, but this is not perfectly balanced because it's got the little rover that I built on the top of it. And jettison. The rover on the top of it, he's got a miner, he's got enough thermoelectric generators to run said miner, and he's also got some lights and about 3,000 units of Kethane storage. This is not a huge amount of Kethane storage, but it is enough to bring a few hundred units of fuel and oxidizer to the rover, which is currently landed on Minmus. Now, I did end the flight of that one and bring up a different one because I had a small idea on how I could adjust it just by a hair in order to make it better. Alright, so jettison that. Control from here. And then we need to disable the gimbal here for a second. Alright, I can turn those gimbals back off now. We don't want them running for very long. Oop. Whoa, go back down there, you little. Oop, and I also forgot to engage the brakes on these wheels up here because otherwise they will spin around randomly. And that really doesn't matter until you go trying to land, but if you try to land with the wheels spinning all willy-nilly, it will, it'll take off, especially on a planet like Minmus where any kind of forces are amplified exponentially. The spinning of the wheels is enough to cause some severe problems. Alright, so we have performed our gravity turn. We're at about 1,000 meters a second here in a second. And what we're looking for is about 120,000. I actually, just to say, this craft, 120,000 burning at oops, wait a minute. Dump those off. That's going to lose me some efficiency. Darn. I need to control from here again. There we go. Now we're looking for, right about there. Alright, now, this exact same setup, running at the 3rd notch down, which was more power than I needed. I could have actually probably run it at about 2/3 and still made it up here just fine. But running it at just 3 notches down actually lost me some efficiency. I wound up, after creating a circularized orbit at 120 kilometers, with 783 units of fuel remaining in this tank here. This one was empty, this one was still full, and this is actually what the payload is because this weighs practically nothing. But this one was down to 783 units of fuel. So now that we have, oops, I didn't actually set up a maneuver here. Let's go ahead and do that. We want to circularize the orbit. Doesn't need to be perfect, but a good circle will help to make this easier to control when it comes to attempting to match up the inclination here. All right. And I'm going to use the age-old trick of smacking the time accelerator in order to freeze the craft here. Because you know what? No, I'm not. Because I brought way more monopropellant than I really need to. And stop. That'll do. If I can actually stop it. There we go. Alright, so a little bit of time acceleration here, just to about 45 seconds. And now we will kick the Rockomax back up to maximum throttle. I should actually come over here and lock the gimbal on it. The engine has served its purpose. We can use the RCS to keep us going straight here, that's fine. Just get it nice and centered. Give the RCS a minute to figure that out. There we go. Now you can turn it off. And that will help to prevent the oscillations that you were just barely seeing, because oscillation is bad. Oscillation is very bad. Alright. So 30 more seconds here. I'll come back when that gets closer to finishing. Alright. 3, 2, 1, and boom. Okay. So what did we wind up with? We wound up with 875. Now, I'll admit that it isn't a great amount more efficient, but burning the Rockomax engines at 100% is more efficient. So, yeah, don't give me that crap. I've proved it. I've proved it again and again and again. You go test it for yourselves, guys. It's because me showing it to you, I mean, I could have edited a save file or done something funny. You don't know that what you're watching on here is actually true. Although I will say this. Save states are for babies. I don't use save states. Ever. I have never, not once, ever used a save state, and I don't intend to start. Just, you know, saying. That's why the title change. I decided that that's what I'm going to call my series. Save states are for babies. Because I don't like using save states, and I never do. So we are in, and let's see, it's 131 and about 100. It's close enough. Circularized orbit here. Let's go ahead and set our target as Minmus. Set as target. Good, 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 good. And where are we? We're here. So we're going to need to do a burn here going down. Oops. There, I did pass it. Alright, and right about there. Doesn't need to be perfect. We can make more fine-tuned adjustments in a bit. Alright, so RCS, please drag me over to the appropriate direction. I believe I'm actually going the wrong way, but oh well. It just means I'll have to go all the way around instead of landing on it right when I want to. I've got 7 minutes to figure it out. No worries. It's early today. Very early. Alright, so, oh, there it is. That's my target. So let's go ahead and hit it up. We're looking at an estimated burn of about 10 seconds. I believe that we will have, we have enough fuel to do that with the Rockomax. We may have to take a little bit of fuel away from the other engines, but that's fine, because in reality, this craft actually brings way too much fuel. I mean, literally, its destination, or it's supposed to land on Minmus and never come back, right? Well, it brings enough fuel to land on Minmus, land on the Mun, and then land on Kerbin. Yeah, it brings a lot of fuel with it. Although I don't think it has the engine power to land back on. No, it might have the engine power, actually, after you dump the fuel tank. You'll see what I mean when we actually get to Minmus. So we've got 3, 2, 1, and let's go ahead and begin our burn. I want to see what this fuel tank is doing, because I want to know if we're going to have enough. I think we will. Oop, hang on, I need to free the gimbal here. Not pointed in the right direction here. And, okay, we'll stop it right there. We're going to stop a little bit early. I'll lock the SAS in. And now you can go away. And what I want to do is burn a little bit more until you... right about there. A nice 0.0. It's as good as it's going to get. And the fact that it's wiggling around a little bit means it's very close to becoming not a number as well. Which is great, because that means my orbital inclination is almost perfect. Alright, so we're wanting to go here. But that's a problem. We would have to start our burn now if we wanted to make it on this rotation. So we're going to accelerate time a little bit in order to move the craft around Kerbin. There we go. Alright, and now I can add a maneuver back here to actually go to Minmus without worrying about intersecting the wrong thing here. Alright, so we need to go over here a little bit. And there's Minmus. Little more acceleration. Ooh, that creates some interesting orbits. We want to be going this way. We want to go around the planet like that. So we don't want to accelerate too much, because we just want to catch... we just want to catch Minmus. We don't want to go ahead of it and have it catch us from behind, because then we'll be traveling in the wrong direction with reference to the space station. Although that's kind of irrelevant, considering the fact that this thing's not going to land with the space station. It actually needs to do some docking. But I'll show you that when we actually get there. Alright, so what have we got now? Now I need to activate the SAS again, and I can see my little blue marker. He's up here. Thankfully I can see him, so I'm just going to go navigate to him. My monopropellant's running a little bit low, but that's okay. We really only need the monopropellant to run when we have these big tanks on here. So that's not really a big problem. We have a lot of fuel left in that Rockomax fuel tank. I am More than a little impressed by that. That's got a lot more fuel in it than I had last time. And last time I wound up with tons of fuel left over anyway. Oy vey. Alright, so let's go ahead and get lined up here. Alright, lined up, SAS, time acceleration, get us around to our objective. We're going to burn a little bit early because I know for a fact that there's not enough fuel to run that Rockomax for another 43 seconds. We're probably only going to get another 8 or so out of it before it runs out of fuel. So we're going to start at about, we'll start at 43 seconds. That sounds right. That sounds right. One, and we got 58 seconds. And we'll go ahead and burn 50. Alright, so now we're just going to run this fuel tank until he runs dry. Won't take long at all. And gone. Alright, now we will decouple. And I'm just going to leave that floating in space because space debris, why not? Oh, no, 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 no. Stop, 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 stop. Stop. Blast it. Control from here. You're not supposed to... There. Now go back over to your objective. RCS, save me. Ah. When it decoupled, the SAS was still engaged, but the SAS thought that we had actually basically spun around 180 degrees instantaneously. Not cool. Not cool. Alright, so here we go. We're going to lock that in. We've already got our throttle up, so we just need to activate the engines. And there we go. Now it's going to take us a minute to actually get our acceleration, a minute and a half to get our acceleration here. And I was so busy screwing around with it that I didn't immediately fire the engines back up, which sucks. But, oh well, that's okay. We can compensate for that. It'll just take a little bit more fuel. But we've got a metric crap ton of fuel to go with us right now, because right now we're basically running, how many of these do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Basically running 2 toroidal aerospike engines. These, you know what? I absolutely love this Scipio's pack. These mini parts pack. It's just, I love it. I mean, come on, that looks so much cooler than having 2 big ones on the side. They're all sitting on structural pylons too. Yeah. Alright, now they're not going to overheat. They are not actually impacting the fuel tank back here. They are drawing from the fuel tank, but they're not impacting it. And we're probably only going to get through about half of this fuel tank before we land on Minmus, but that's okay. If we're in the atmosphere and I fire them, oddly enough, they will do some damage to this nose cone here, this adapter. But for some reason or another, once you're in space, the adapter doesn't take any more damage. And I only know that it takes damage because I was fiddling around with it a lot, and every time I ended the flight, it would say that it had taken damage from the toroidal aerospikes. But this one won't say it took damage. Ooh, wait, we already did our burn? Oh, it looks like we've completely finished our burn. We actually have overshot our burn. Crap, I was so busy talking that... Alright, alright, alright. Now, I don't need to use RCS here, because I actually have enough from the gyroscopes within the single SAS unit I've got on board that I am good to go for that. So I'm just going to rotate around, do a reverse burn here, or sorry, a retrograde burn, and then we will return once Minmus has gotten close. Alright, so we are now very close to Minmus, and we're going to go in for a landing. Now, we're not even going to attempt to do this the hard way, or the fuel-efficient way, I should say, which is to do one really powerful burn right at the end, right before you come in for a landing. We're going to take it nice and slow. So first things first, kill off directional velocity. And like I said, I've got so much fuel for this, this is just ridiculous. I am going to time accelerate this for you guys. We're going to do it about 400%. I will come back when we get to the surface. Alrighty then, so we're getting really close. You can see the fuel tank that was about halfway full of fuel just impacted the remaining piece, the... what's it called? The adapter thing. Whatever. It survives that. It really doesn't even have a small issue surviving that. I think it's because the fuel tank has got so much fuel left in it that it winds up exploding rather violently. But, you know, difficult to say. Difficult to say. Anyway, we're going to come in for a landing here. It's a little bit interesting. I've got so much thrust that even the most microscopic amount of throttle here will completely slow me down. So we have to kind of toggle it on and off. Oop, a little too much there. Perfect. Now that's what I call a landing. Glorious. Alright, so and as you can see, that that thing was half full of fuel when I dumped it off. And this thing, it doesn't even barely scratch the amount of fuel that's in it, so we could do this all day long. Alright, so now what I need to establish here is which direction is... Alright, so we're going to want to do it that way. Right. Alright, so now if I come on to this guy and hit the decouple, I should be able to rotate this way. And that thing gets stuck every time. Oh. Really? Alright, come on. Come on. Well, that's one way to do it, I suppose. Ah, glorious. And now we can disengage the brakes. Ooh. Right, I need to go into docking mode here because... Yeah, there we go. Alright, so now as you can see here on Minmus, the wheels actually do react properly. They're all slow and ponderous. Because here, we have very little gravity and therefore very little traction. Now, let's go ahead and turn these lights on. We can see a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. Now the question is, where are we? We're actually not that far away from the fuel miner. Very good, very good. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to accelerate time until we are again on the daylight side. Just a little bit more. Right about there. A little bit more. Come on. There. Alright. So what we're going to now do is we're going to switch over to this thing and we're going to end its flight. And flight. There we go. I still think that it's absolutely hilarious about how that guy actually thinks that time runs backwards. Stages: separation 76543. Rocco Max fuel tank crashed into the terrain. The adapter then crashes into the terrain about 38 seconds later because it bounced when the fuel tank crashed into the terrain. So yeah, I don't know what's up with that guy. Anyway, let's go ahead and head to the tracking station because now we need to head to our fuel miner. And on the next episode of the Kerbal Space Program, we're going to take the fuel miner, which he landed here a while ago, and let me just show you what changed. What changed? Simple. The mini parts packet toroidal aerospike engines have been changed to nuclear. They are now atomic rocket motors, and you know what that means? That means that with this jumbo Rocco Max 232 fuel tank, I can hover almost indefinitely. These things last forever. It's great. Oh, it's so great. And it still has the power to land and take off on many heavier planets such as the Moon. Or, sorry, the Moon. It's actually pronounced Moon. Kerbalese is weird. It is actually pronounced Moon. Anyway, but it can actually land on the Moon, and I can go harvest fuel on the Moon with it if I wanted to. Now, I was sitting here and mined up the Kethane deposit underneath me, so if I show the map here and activate the detector for a tick, you will note that there is only 45,000 liters of Kethane left in this deposit. But I've got 64,000 liters of Kethane in my tanks, as well as having refilled my monopropellant and my liquid fuel and oxidizer. I made quite the dent with this miner. I wasn't expecting it to make such a big dent. Anyway, it looks like our craft that we're going to run and pick up is over here somewhere. But we're going to go find him here in a bit. Is that him? I think that's him. Yeah, target Kethane rover Mark II. That's what we wanted. Alright, so we're going to go pick him up. That should be entertaining on the next episode. I'll see you then.